A family that turned a leaked intimate video into the beginning of a multi-million-dollar empire. A rapper now accused of abuse, sex trafficking, and parties that ended under federal investigation. Kim Kardashian, always at his events. Khloé Kardashian, always at his parties. And Kris Jenner, part of his inner circle. A connection that, for years, seemed completely normal. But in all of this, there's something that never quite added up. Stories of private parties, closed environments, and narratives that start to repeat themselves. A video claiming that Khloé may have been with Diddy at 16. Kris Jenner interviewing him, promoting his network, and maintaining the relationship over time. Kanye West defending him even now. And in the middle of all this, another name appears. North West, the daughter of Kim Kardashian and Kanye West. Because as the Diddy scandal begins to grow, Kanye doesn't step away. Quite the opposite. He continues to show closeness. He keeps mentioning him. He remains connected, even in projects involving his own daughter. And that's what creates discomfort. Because this is no longer just about a relationship between adults. It's about an environment where a minor is indirectly exposed to a much larger conflict. A conflict that mixes power, accusations, and relationships that are hard to fully explain. And then the question changes. Who knew? Who was there? And who chose not to speak? Because this isn't just about Diddy. It's about the network he moved in. And the most unsettling part is that many of these connections were always out in the open. This is behind the icon. And this is the story of the connection between P. Diddy and the Kardashian family. If Hollywood had an award for the most disturbing connections, the relationship between the Kardashians and P. Diddy would win by far. Back in 2019, Diddy's 50th birthday party, one of the most exclusive events of the year, limited access, selective invitations, and a guest list, impossible to ignore, celebrities, business figures, top-tier personalities, and right in the middle of all that, all of them, Kim Kardashian, Khloé Kardashian, Kylie Jenner, not just as guests, but at the center of it all. Full production, cameras, lights, perfectly curated photos, Instagram stories, videos, posts, everything documented. Khloé posts a photo with Diddy, smiling, close, and in her caption she writes, "There's nothing like a Diddy party." At the time, it was just another line. But today, that line feels very different. Because it's no longer just about a party. It's about the context. Who was there? How often the same faces appear? And most importantly, what started to come out afterward. Because when we look at that image today, we don't just see a celebration, we see a network of relationships, a shared environment, and a pattern that keeps repeating itself. But there's something about Diddy's environment that keeps coming up again and again, and it's worth breaking down. 1. The white parties, annual events that for years were synonymous with luxury and exclusivity. Guests dressed in white, celebrities, business figures, Hollywood personalities. Among the names linked to those events, Leonardo DiCaprio, Paris Hilton, Ashton Kutcher, Beyoncé. Everything looked flawless, controlled, perfect. But over time, different versions start to emerge, versions that point to something else, to what happened after. 2. The so-called freak-offs, much more private gatherings, much more closed off. According to various allegations, these were events held in hotel rooms or private mansions. And while there are no public records of specific attendees, the accounts describe an environment filled with people from the same circle. Artists, producers, people with significant power, not just within the industry. Names that had often already appeared at the white parties. There are mentions of substance use, of controlled environments, and of situations that, over time, began to be described as exploitation. All of it happening within a completely sealed environment. 3. The testimonies. Because over the years, accounts start to appear that align with each other. Different people, different moments. But similar descriptions. Parties that began as social events and ended as something entirely different. And that's where everything changes. Because what once seemed like part of the spectacle starts to look like a pattern. And when that pattern repeats itself, it's no longer just a party. But this connection between Diddy and the Kardashian family didn't start in 2019. It actually goes back much further. One of the first clear moments appears when Kris Jenner had her own TV show. At that time, Diddy is invited as a guest in a completely public setting, on camera and in front of a large audience. The conversation flows normally, until at one point, the tone shifts. Diddy starts flirting with Kris live on air. No filter, no apparent discomfort. "I need you in my life. I need to see you every day."
"I need you in my life, baby. I need you every day I turn on the TV. I need to see your beautiful, sexy, fine self."
The moment goes viral almost immediately. Clips circulating, headlines, reactions. But instead of raising concerns or questions, it's interpreted as just another part of the show. Entertainment for television. And that's where the first important detail starts to appear. None of this seems unusual in that context. That same year, Kris Jenner also begins promoting Revolt TV, Diddy's network. It's no longer just a one-time interview, but a relationship that starts to take shape on a professional level as well. Appearances, mentions, public support. And over time, that connection doesn't disappear. Years later, in 2017, they're still crossing paths. At events, in similar spaces. In environments not everyone has access to. It's not an isolated encounter. It's not a one-time coincidence. It's a relationship that continues. And when a connection is sustained over years within the same circle, it starts to look very different. Because it stops being something casual and becomes part of the same circle of power. A circle where everyone knows each other, where everyone overlaps, and where everything that happens isn't always as easy to see from the outside as it really is. And at this point, that's when the story starts to change, because it's no longer just about public appearances, events, or shared photos. Other versions begin to emerge, accounts that don't come from headlines, but from experiences, from people who were there. People start talking about private parties, much more closed environments, spaces with limited access, where what happened inside didn't always come to light. And in the middle of all that, one name appears: Khloé Kardashian. At different moments, Khloé hints that within that environment, there were situations that were difficult for her to process. She doesn't describe exactly what happened, but she makes it clear that it affected her. And that is what creates discomfort. Because it's not a direct accusation, but it's not just a casual comment either. It's a signal. And then another element appears, a video that begins circulating online. Material claiming that Khloé may have been exposed to that environment when she was just 16. In contexts where alcohol and other substances are also mentioned, none of this is officially confirmed. There is no conclusive evidence, but it's not an isolated account either, because when you start to look closer, the stories begin to repeat themselves. Different voices, different moments, but the same kind of environment. And that's where perception shifts, because it's no longer just a party or a single anecdote. It becomes a pattern, a type of situation that for years seemed like part of the spectacle, but over time starts to be seen differently. And when that happens, everything that came before stops feeling innocent. But there are three specific moments that make this story look different. 1. The repetition. Kim Kardashian, Khloé Kardashian, Kylie Jenner appearing at the same events as Diddy over and over again, at different stages, in different years, not just once, multiple times, the same faces, the same places, the same photos. 2. The case of Ashton Kutcher. For years, he was a regular presence in Diddy's circle, events, parties, public appearances. He even spoke openly about those parties. But when all of this starts coming to light, Ashton disappears. He stops mentioning him. He stops showing up. He completely steps away from the spotlight. And that shift is what creates discomfort. Because it's not just distance, it's silence. And when someone who was that close suddenly isn't there anymore, the question becomes inevitable. What did he see? Or what did he know? 3. The connection with Justin Bieber. For years, they were seen together. Events, studios, shared moments. Even Bieber himself said he spent time at Diddy's house for several days in a row. At the time, it was seen as something normal, just part of the music world. But over time, that relationship started to look different, harder to explain, more uncomfortable. And that's what brings back the same question. What kind of relationship was it? And what was happening behind closed doors? And in the middle of this entire network, there's a figure that appears again and again, not at the center, not as the main character, but always present. Corey Gamble, for many, simply Kris Jenner's boyfriend. A familiar presence within the Kardashian circle, but when you start to look closer, his role doesn't seem so simple anymore, because Corey didn't come out of nowhere. Before appearing publicly alongside Kris Jenner, he was already part of the music industry. He moved within that world. He knew the right people. He frequented the same spaces. And within that environment, Diddy was there too. They crossed paths at events, at meetings, and in private circles. The same names, in the same places. And Corey was always there, always present, but never overly exposed. He doesn't give interviews, he doesn't seek attention, but he shows up at key moments, like a constant figure, but a silent one. And that's what starts to raise questions, because in an environment where everything is measured, calculated, and visible, what stays hidden stands out. Is it just a coincidence? Or someone who understands exactly how to move within that system? Because when someone is always in the right place, with the right people, at the right moments, it stops looking like chance and starts to look like a piece of something much bigger. And there comes a point when everything changes, because what for years had been part of the spectacle is no longer seen as entertainment. Raids begin, federal operations, properties searched, documents seized, investigations that are no longer based on rumors, but on concrete cases. At the same time, the accusations start to pile up. Testimonies, allegations, accounts that, for the first time, begin to gain massive visibility. And in that context, Diddy's name shifts. It starts to appear in a different light, much more uncomfortable, much harder to ignore, and then something inevitable happens. Everything that came before takes on a different meaning. The parties stop looking like simple exclusive events, the relationships no longer seem like just connections within entertainment, and the images that circulated for years without raising questions start to be seen differently. The same photos, the same videos, the same people, but with a different interpretation. And when the way you look at something changes, everything changes. Because what once seemed normal starts to raise doubts, and what once felt like part of the spectacle starts to be understood as part of something much more complex. Because when someone looks at all of this, the question is no longer whether the Kardashians and Diddy were connected. The question is how deep that connection really went. Because when the same figures appear again and again, it stops looking like a coincidence and starts to reveal a structure. This was behind the icon, and this was the story of a connection that for years was completely out in the open. If you're interested in these kinds of stories, subscribe to the channel and let us know what other story you'd like us to explore, because behind every figure, there's always something more, and there's always a story worth telling.